We are back. It is fight season. It's me, Jesse Rowe with Inside Fighting, and we are joined by one of my favorite guests, Cody Gibson, UFC bantamweight. What's up, Cody? Welcome back. How you doing?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me. I always like talking to you guys at Inside Fighting.
Yeah, we appreciate you, man. And I know you're a little busy right now. You're juggling a lot of different things, and I know that you're fresh out of a class right now. Before we go anywhere, I just want to ask, how's the baby boy doing? How's I know you just had your first Christmas with your baby boy. How's he doing?
He's doing good. He'll be a year at the end of this month, and so it's a fun stage for sure. He's other than cleaning up his messes after he eats, which is like a tornado, but other than that, it's a pretty fun stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so you're fighting Da'Mon Blackshear March 15th at UFC Apex, next weekend UFC Vegas 104, and you're coming off of a big win over Chad Anheliger. I think I'm pronouncing that right, Chad Anheliger. How did you feel about your performance? Because you was pretty dominant. It was unanimous decision win. You came close to a finish a couple of times, but we caught you in Edmonton. You seemed a little like, I don't know, like a little disappointed after it. Were you disappointed to get the finish, or did you just feel like you could have left more out there? What were your thoughts on your performance?
Yeah. I mean, I'm always kind of hard on myself. Like you always have like a vision in your head of how a fight's gonna go, and then um, I just thought I should have finished that fight. You know, credit to Chad, he was real tough and fought out of some tough positions, but um, a couple of minor adjustments. And as soon as I got home, I was like, "We're getting in the lab, and we're gonna work on when they go to this defense off this submission, where am I going next? And like just trying to dissect it. So more just hard on myself, but I mean overall, you can't be too down about a 30-27 across the board. So yeah, I just think I hold myself to a high standard. I want to be known as a finisher. I'm always searching for bonuses. That's where I'm going to make my money. So
Right.
other than winning, that's kind of the next priority. And so I think I was just disappointed that I knew I probably wasn't going to get a bonus.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I mean, at the very least, is it any consolation knowing that the referee told you were the first fighter in history to successfully cut somebody with a legal 12-6 elbow?
Yeah, that was cool. Uh, yeah, at least I'll go down in the history books for that. So yeah, people were like on the internet, "What are you talking about? They used to do 12-6s." I guess it's the old school. They didn't have before they had the rules and stuff. I'm sure somebody was cut pretty bad, but as far as the new, passing the athletic commissions that you could do 12-6s, it was the first fight night or first card where in the UFC where you can do them, and so to get the first one and I was working on them in the gym, like because I knew that I was like, all right, we're going to do a lot of 12-6 elbows from different positions,
Right.
drilling wise, and so to actually execute one and cut them was kind of cool.
Were you also working on the knees to grounded opponents? Were you working? Are you working on your timing with that at all? Like with how to time it out properly when their hand is down versus when their knee is down, all that sort of stuff?
Not so much to like, yeah, I guess, but more so than the timing, like putting my opponent in positions where they're gonna be inclined to just put their hands down, and they're not gonna remember in the moment, like, oh, he can knee me from here still, because I think we're so conditioned to if the hands down, then I'm safe. Um,
Right.
so I think more so just looking at different scenarios where you could kind of open the door for an opponent to do that, and then when they do, to capitalize on it. So, um, yeah, I think it'll take some. If we've all been, if everyone's been as conditioned as I am to remember the hand is the safe thing, and then they don't do anything, and they put their hand down and forget for a second. Someone's gonna get reminded in an unpleasant way here pretty soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, you know, I was going to ask you about fighting in Canada. Just out of curiosity, how was it fighting in Canada versus fighting in the United States? Was it like did you enjoy the Canadian crowd? I know you probably got taxed in a different way. Just what was your experience like?
I always like visiting places I've never been, and that's always one of the perks to this job. Is
Yeah,
just getting to travel to places I would never find myself and explore them and meet the locals. And yeah, Canada was no different. Edmonton was kind of like a blue collar town, and uh, So it was cool to kind of, I met a lot of locals, and I always give my tickets away if I don't need them to locals. And so, yeah, it was a fun experience. I don't know if I would have ever gone to Edmonton, Alberta, Canada in my life, and so now I had a week out there. So, um, anywhere they want to send me, is if it's somewhere I've never been, I'm probably pretty stoked, just because I like to experience new things.
Yeah. Well, now you're back at the Apex. Are you do you enjoy like because we were talking to Alex Morono earlier today. He said that he almost prefers it. Like I know that you probably would prefer to fight in front of crowds, but like do you enjoy the sort of duality of fighting in front of a crowd versus fighting in front of an Apex, or would you prefer to only be in front of a crowd?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan. I'm the kind of fighter I feel like that feeds off the energy of a
Yeah.
room. And I've been in fights where things were getting hard, and the crowd and the energy, whether it's for you or against you, it gives you a little extra. And so yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the silence. Um, but I've done it enough times now between the Ultimate Fighter, and then I've had a couple of fights there, so I feel like I know what to expect, and I kind of, at least you could kind of know that you're going to need to get yourself a little more psyched up than maybe you normally would, because that energy is not going to be in the room.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm thinking about your fight against Brad Katona, and I'm like, that fight just wouldn't. I mean, it was an epic fight. It was just such a back and forth battle. Like, if that fight wasn't in front of a crowd, it just wouldn't have had the same effect.
Yeah.
Just because it was so competitive. All right, so you're fighting Da'Mon Blackshear. What's your thoughts on the matchup and how you feeling about how you stack up against him?
I'm excited about the matchup. I feel like it's a step up in competition, kind of that next tier. Uh,
Right,
and he's a guy he's only ever lost to good fighters.
right.
If you look at his record and you kind of scour through his topology, you're like, okay, so every one of his losses are to top 15 guys, or guys that were in the UFC. He fought, and he didn't take the easy road. He took tough fights outside the promotion before he ever got to the UFC, and I think that's paid dividends for him when he got there, because he was ready to be there. And yeah, he's a tough guy, well-rounded guy, explosive, good grappling, good striking. So um, I saw the betting odds, so that excites me. Being a big underdog always excites me. That's right where I want to be. I always want to fight guys who other people think can beat me. So I'm excited to play the spoiler and hopefully ruin somebody's parlay out there.
I love that. That gives you a little added motivation, knowing that the odds makers are counting you out a little bit.
Oh, 100%. I actually can't stand it when I'm the favorite in a fight. Like, it bothers me. Like,
Okay.
I just feel like it's like how I kind of view fighting and view, I guess, the world, and it's always been from an underdog's perspective. So I prefer to be counted out. So I'm excited to hopefully prove some people wrong.
Love that. That's a quote. That's my headline right there. Thank you for that. He's one of the few guys that's ever gotten a twister submission. Are you in any way preparing for a potential twister in this fight?
Yeah, I've actually brought in a black belt who kind of specializes from back control and is really crafty with his twister and everything. And I've been putting myself 25 minutes every Tuesday and Thursday. That guy starts with my back, and I'm trying to get out. I'm trying to not get submitted, and hopefully, all that work and focus on it will keep me safe, because yeah, and I was a leg rider when I was a college wrestler, so I kind of understand the position pretty well. But definitely something I got to watch out for is giving up my back, and it's not just the one he got in a fight, but if you watch footage on him, he's tried it in several fights, so it's definitely one of his go-to things when he gets the back. So
Right.
I've got some good defense from it. I feel like we have a plan if we ended up in that position. So knock on wood, I won't give him that position at all, because it does suck.
Yeah. Right. I wanted to go back to the Apex really quick, just because I had a follow up question to that. I don't know if you saw, but the one of the president of TKO, Mark Shapiro, he said that there's no difference between the big crowds and fighting at the Apex. And I know obviously, like he's like they're cool with the UFC and everything, so you don't want to badmouth your boss or anything like that. But like, do you feel like that's like a Do you feel like there's any truth to that, or do you feel like that's just like a misunderstanding of of what performing in front of a crowd does for your ability to compete and go through hard times.
I mean, I think if you're looking at it from a business perspective, I get it. Like, you know, they have to do so many shows with whatever, right now it's ESPN. It might be changing at the end of this year. Um, Whatever broadcast partner they have, they sign on to do X amount of shows, and they save a lot of money using the Apex because they've got everything in house, and they've got it dialed in really well, and it's easy on them.
Right.
From a fighter's perspective, I would have to disagree, and I think that MMA is a sport that is best seen live. And even from, I think maybe he meant like from home, there's no difference because it's not like you can feel the crowd, but um, I don't know. There's just something about it that doesn't seem quite the same.
No, let me tell you, even from a fan's perspective, like I can say I do feel it watching it at home on TV. Like when you hear a crowd going crazy for a moment, or like when, you're going into like the final round and the fighters are hyping up the crowd and stuff, that stuff actually helps you when you're watching it at home too. But you're right. I was there for UFC Seattle. There was every single fight on the prelims ended in a finish. It was an unbelievable. It's like the best crowd atmosphere of my life. And I've seen sports shows around the world, so I wouldn't trade that for anything else. Well, I'm curious. Dana White starting a boxing league with Turki Alalshikh. What are your thoughts on that? I know I know you like boxing. We've talked about it before. So what are your thoughts about that?
Um, I don't know. I would hate to see boxing fall into the same trap of MMA, but I'll leave it at that.
Okay, gotcha. Anything you can say about what traps MMA falls into, or do you not want to go further?
You can look at the prelims of a major boxing event, and you can look at the prelims of a UFC event, and I think you could read between the lines.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. All right. Um, so just curious, how's your school year going? Are you going to invite? I know that it's an Apex card. Have you ever invited one of your students to one of your fights, by the way?
No, I've had a few say they wanted to go and stuff, but no, I've never had any students at a fight. I don't think. But no, yeah, I'm excited to, you know, I really was on the fence about teaching this year and or not, and I decided to, um, but I haven't had to balance work and training and home life in a while. My last two camps, I've been able to do it full time, so this was the first one back where I was balancing it all, and this is the last time I'm hopefully going to do it. So I'm hoping in June I'm going to resign from my position in the school and focus on fighting. So that kind of gave me a little more motivation, to kind of just power through and realize that it's going to kind of suck and you're going to be really busy and life's going to be challenging for a few months. But knowing that this is the last time I had to do it, I think kind of gave me a little more juice. So um, we put in the work, and so I'm excited to go out and perform.
Absolutely. Well, I hope that happens. I mean, either way, you're getting the summer vacation coming up anyway, so you get a little extra time to focus. I'm sorry. Thank you for your time. I know you're just finishing up with school, so I only have a few more for you. Just curious what your thoughts are on Ilia Topuria vacating the featherweight belt, moving up to lightweight. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm all for it. Like, as far as I think that the whole champ thing has kind of been overdone a little bit at this point.
Yeah.
Not to mention the fact that not only are you leaving contenders kind of waiting, but I don't know. It just seems like it's happening too often, and they're not clearing out a division enough before they do it. So, if he wanted to move up, I think that the right thing happened. He gave up the belt, and he can move up and challenge himself and see if he can become a champion of a different division. But yeah, I think if we're gonna go up a weight, then the belt needs to be vacated. So, I'm all for that. And I think more guys should be doing that if they're wanting to play around with different weights.
Yeah, totally agree. Curious what your thoughts about the champion of your division, Umar. I'm sorry, Merab just beat beat Umar. I was in attendance at UFC 310, or sorry, UFC 311. It was, Merab put on a show, but also there's some controversy about, how definitive of a win it was because of the broken hand. So I'm curious, do you feel like that was a fluky win by Merab, or do you feel like it was a definitive win by Merab?
No, I thought it was pretty definitive. I thought uh, one of the knocks on the Dagestani guys is we've seen multiple occasions where they do fade in the fight, especially if they're in a tough fight. We saw it with Islam against Volkanovski, and we definitely saw it with Umar too. And Merab just makes everybody look like that. By the time we get to those fourth and fifth rounds, he just has a different kind of gas tank. And um, yeah, I thought it was a good performance from him, and I'm sure those two will meet again because Umar's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I thought it was a good fight, and no, I don't think it was a fluke. I think Merab's the best in the world.
Yeah. Do you think that there's an argument for him to be like one of the best bantamweights of all time, or maybe the best? Because I know that it might be a little early, but there are people who are starting to push that narrative.
I mean, yeah, you got to look at it's so hard because the sport is so young. I feel like still and changes so much. Like Dominic Cruz just retired, and for a long time he was the bantamweight goat. A lot of
Hmm.
people didn't understand Aljamain was the goat, and people think Dillashaw was the goat at one point, Hinan Barao at one point. So I just think, yeah, I've never really been that into the discussion of goats because it just seems like it's a pointless debate because every generation is going to have a different take. Same with boxing. You talk to boxing fans about the best boxers. It's like, well, what boxers were around during my generation? That's usually the ones I think were the best. So, but yeah, I think he's here to stay. Everybody can get caught, and Merab's been caught. So I'm sure he's got he's got a lot of guys coming up. If I look at my division, there's some killers coming up. So um, we'll see how long he can hang on. But I mean, he's definitely. I think another one or two title defenses. You got to put him in that conversation for sure.
Yeah, and there's talk that it's potentially going to be Sean O'Malley in a rematch. What are your thoughts? Do you feel like Sean should get the next title shot?
I mean, from a perspective of like merit, no. Um, Obviously, he lost that fight pretty one sided.
Right.
Usually, if you lose a title fight in a one sided fashion, especially if you haven't had 5, 6, 7 defenses, you're not getting an immediate rematch. But from a business perspective, again, O'Malley's a popular guy. They see him as a person who could be a star for them. So I get it from that perspective. So, um, yeah, I mean, I don't know how much he's going to be able to adapt in time. Like you're going to have to change quite a bit about your game in a relatively short amount of time, or you're going to have to, you got 25 more opportunities, 25 more minutes to clip him. But it's going to be, I would think, pretty similar outcome. But like I said, O'Malley is a sniper, so it's not that he couldn't catch him. So it'll be interesting. But yeah, I don't know. If he loses, that's where we get in an interesting territory because it's like here you have this up and coming star who's lost twice now to your champion. How are you going to justify a third, even if he's coming off a couple wins? So
Right.
we'll see.
Yeah, it's almost risky to make that fight in some ways if the UFC wants to continue, marketing him. But um,
I really wanted to see him fight Sandhagen. I think that would be a crazy good striking fight.
that's that's the fight that everybody wants to see. That's the most unique stylistic matchup. And I think I still think we will see that fight one day, but maybe
Yeah,
not next.
I hope so.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate it, man. So I guess I'll just leave this here with you. With a win next Saturday against Da'Mon Blackshear, what are the next steps for Cody Gibson?
I think if I could go out and I could get a finish and look impressive in this fight, and then the next step would be, either someone on ranked low or someone who's been in the rankings who's right outside of them now. But I think it definitely sets me up for something big in the summer, a big opportunity. And so this would be 3 in a row for me. So I feel like, it's a step up in competition, and I'm hoping, go out and impress, and then hopefully something even bigger in the summer with trying to get a number next to your name. That's the whole goal of this thing is to, climb the ladder one step at a time. So that's all I'm thinking about is going out and doing my job and looking good doing it. And good things. I was trying to get that Rob fight the other week, a couple weeks ago. I was like, hey, I'll jump in there and take that fight.
Right.
And Shelby said something to the effect of like, you need to keep stacking them up, essentially. Like, I know you had a couple, but you got to. And so I want to be in a position where an opportunity like that comes up that they look at me and say, yeah, let's give them the opportunity,
Yeah. So if they got one of those short notice, like, hey, you got 5 days to make 135, would you be able to do it?
Yeah, I've done it before. I made my UFC debut on 10 days notice and lost 30-something pounds. So,
wow.
I can do it again. Not
Yep.
something I want to do, but
Yeah.
and I actually stay a little bit lighter these days than I used to when I was younger. And so, yeah, I would definitely. If there's one thing I've learned about this sport, it's that it is a sport of opportunity. So, being in the right place at the right time and taking those opportunities is what I'm all about. So.
Absolutely. Well, that's why I root for you, man. I wish you the best of luck. I'll be rooting for you Saturday night against Da'Mon Blackshear. Cody Gibson, thanks as always, and best of luck, all right?
Thanks, Jesse. Always good talking to you, man.
Yeah, you too. Appreciate it.